Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Flycast webinar. My name is John Postorino, and I'm going to be your host. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day and joining us. And we have some exceptional people on this call. They're going to show you something that I think is invaluable to all of us as an organization. And we're going to talk about discovery and service mapping and how it's achievable. This is just one of the webinars that we have here at Flycast. And we do webinars weekly, so if you can, please go visit our webpage at flycastpartners.com and look at the schedule coming up, and hopefully there's things in there that can fill some of your immediate and long-term needs. And we request you or ask you and encourage you to sign up and partake in additional webinars. So who are we? Who is Flycast? We're premier implementers of on-prem and off-prem solutions. As the world changes, we too change. And one thing that I want to say is we stay true to our customers, we stay true to our methodologies, and obviously it's all about customer satisfaction, and that's where our focus is. So again, today we're going to talk about discovery and service mapping. And one housekeeping item before I introduce Will is that if you guys have questions, there's a chat option here that you have within the event. Please go ahead and type your question in, and we'll monitor the questions on this end. And then hopefully at the end, if we have time, we'll go ahead and we'll get some of those questions answered. If we can't answer the question during the call, what we'll do is we'll follow up with you after, and then we'll get you the answer that you're looking for. Well, hopefully that you're looking for based upon what is being asked. So in saying that, I want to introduce Will Johnson. Will's the director of sales over at Virima. He's been there for 3 years. He's got 25 years experience, so he's an older guy. Please be patient. But he's a ITIL, ITSM expert. This guy's been around the block. He's implemented, hundreds and hundreds of solutions, successful solutions to customers. And so we've invited Will and Franco in here today and sit there and show us Verima and show us mapping and how that can occur and how that can help you as an organization. So in saying all that, I just want to say, Will and Franco, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. And the floor is yours, gentlemen.
Oh, and yes, thank you, John, and thank you for the opportunity. I want to say that on behalf of Verima, we appreciate you all attending the webinar. We hope you gain some understanding and knowledge about Verima and discovery and service mapping, and really how achievable it is. Even for the mid-market, right? And also, John, I just want to say how excited we at Virima are in the partnership with Flycast. I've been a longtime fan of the Flycast partners and have a long history with many of the folks there. So we appreciate the partnership and we appreciate the opportunity to speak to your clients. So with that said, team, I've got just a handful of slides I'd like to go through here that kind of help set the table, all right? And then Franco is actually going to take you into a living, breathing demo environment and really walk you through, okay? With that said, let's go ahead and kick off the slide presentation. So folks, really often what we see from a discovery and CMDB perspective, right, is there a handful of common industry challenges, right? Is the ultimate goal is to build a trustworthy CMDB, right? And to do so, you need a hybrid discovery solution. Really, in today's world, who wants to look at data that's on a form in fields, right? Unlock that CMDB, make it visual, create a visualized CMDB and seeing those relationships in a very graphical map, or as we call them, vivid maps, all right? We also see challenges around certificate management, going into ITAM, ITSM, and ITOM. How do you really adopt and improve the way you're delivering services to your business? And then, of course, also vulnerability management. So move on to the next slide, please. Right, and really, CMDB adoption fails, right? So if you all are struggling with it, or maybe even have had a failed attempt at deploying a CMDB, you're not alone, right? Some of the HDI surveys and pink elephant surveys and reports that I see is that close to 80% of CMDB projects fail, right? Well, why is that, right? Number one, manual updates, right? If you're trying to manually seed that CMDB and keep it up to date, you have very, very limited chance of being successful. right? Limited resources, right? Again, couple that with the manual updates, again, recipe for disaster, right? Incomplete data, right? Not having a full 360-degree view of that CI. Limited accessibility, right? Not allowing the right people to see the CMDB, right? All those things lead to an untrustworthy CMDB, which leads to CMDB adoption failure, all right? And we're here to show you how you can be successful. So what we do here at Verima is we have an automated hybrid IT discovery solution at the front end of this, okay? So what's that mean? It's automated, so you schedule this. It's nothing that you need to remember to go out and do. You can schedule, and you can schedule the frequency of scans based upon the subnet, based upon the data center, based upon the IP range, whatever it might be. And you can have different schedules based upon different subnets even, right? So that's the automated part. What's the hybrid part? Well, hybrid is we're going to discover the edge, the cloud, and the data center, okay? And we're going to bring all that back into a collection system that is where all of your data and all the collected information is going to reside. So we can move to the next slide, right? So we push all of that discovered data into our CMDB that's in the cloud. So we are a hosted solution on AWS. We have recently completed our SOC 2 Type 1 certification and are well down the path to receiving our Type 2 certification by the end of the year. So it is a highly secured system, but we are hosted in the cloud that allows for very limited amount of internal resources from a technology perspective, right? You're not going to have to deploy a fleet of servers to be able to host this, right? Really, all we do is we install that small discovery application on a Windows server, and then it starts collecting all of this data, okay? Now, this CMDB, it doesn't house just our discovered data. You can enrich it with third-party data sources, right? You can enrich the discovered CIs, or you can even add in devices that we didn't discover or undiscoverable types of information, okay? So we can move on to the next slide, right? So this is what is automatically produced, right? So on the front end, we have an automated discovery solution. On the back end is an automated service mapping solution, okay? So how do we get this, right? It's through the machine intelligence that resides within our discovery process and into our CMDB that allows us to understand the relationships amongst the configuration items to produce these, again, very vivid service maps, okay? And vivid stands for Verima's Visual Impact Display, all right? You're going to be able to have infrastructure relationships, application dependencies, communication flows, business service mapping, network topology, cloud discovery, right? And then something that no other provider on the market can provide for you is ITSM overlays, and we'll cover that on the next slide. In fact, if you would go one more, right? So the ITSM overlays, what we're going to show you directly on these maps, right? These maps really become a heads-up display for your IT department. We're going to be able to have an overlay of where there are open incidents, pending changes, and most importantly, recently completed changes, okay? So why is that important, right? What we want you to be able to do is very quickly within these service maps is to be able to understand, number one, how your services are being supported, right? All of the hybrid IT infrastructure that's supporting your mission critical services. But we also want you to know what's going on with the service, right? What's going on with the components that are in support of that service. So you'll be able to see where there are open incidents, where there are scheduled changes, and very importantly, where there are recently completed changes. And Franco is going to go into more detail on that in a few minutes here in the demo, right? But I'll mention here is the way we can provide these overlays is through integrations with service management platforms. Flycast represents many of the service management platforms that we partner with, but I'll mention those. So we partner with Avanti, Sharewell, ServiceNow, Manage Engine, and a few others, and there's actually a few more that are in development as well, right? So we have a wealth of integrations for you just from a service management perspective, right? And here, folks, you can see some of the sample customers, the few that we have worked with over the past, along with some of the technology partners and integrators that we work with. And of course, the team here at Flycast is one of our premier partners. In fact, they are our only premier partner. So we're very excited about that partnership. So if we can go on to the next slide. Right. And we do provide a RESTful API that allows for very easy integrations, right? This is just a sample of the integrations that we provide in the most common areas, okay? And you see here again in the ITSM area, IPAM, vulnerabilities is something new that we're going to be producing, security policy, of course, event management, right? We can ingest the alerts from Logic Monitor, Nagios, SolarWinds, and actually have that incident show up on the service map, right? So a lot of information is coming into the system and being visualized within that heads-up display, okay? So we want to move forward to the next slide, please. Right, so that's really what I wanted to share with you all prior to really getting into the feature presentation. And Franco is going to take you through a demo and show you what the capabilities are, right? So one thing I'll mention is this is, again, it is priced for the mid-market, but absolutely is suitable for the enterprise. And we have a very quick ROI. So we'd certainly love the opportunity to be able to talk with you more. So Franco, with that, please take it away, sir.
Well, hello, everybody. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and demo. Let me just minimize some of this stuff off of here. Okay, so where we are right now, we're actually inside of Verima. So I've already logged in and I've already gone to a configuration item and I'm in the business service mapping. So if I could just get this out of my way here, might help me. Okay, all right, so the business service mapping is right here. So this pops up to the screen. So I'm interested in, let's just say that there's this massive change going on and I'm interested in knowing more about SQL 11 and what the impact is to it. Well, so I've drilled down 4 levels and I can see that we've got a pretty important service that's actually dependent on this particular box 2 steps away, and that is the WriteFacts service. It's an enterprise service. I'm going to pull out just to kind of show you what this looks like from a perspective of an ecosystem. So everything that you see here is machine intelligence. It has all come from scans. And what is our goal? Our goal is to be able to tell the story of you, right? You want to tell your story, but there's 2 objectives within that, and that is tell what you know and tell what you don't know. And I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit as well, because there's a huge value add with regards to discovery from even a security perspective. So Will was talking a little bit about interactions and integrations, right? So Vivid, which he said, is our Verima visual impact display, which is what we're seeing now. It allows us to appreciate the interactions and the integrations without having to go too deep into the weeds. What do I mean by that? So this SQL Server 11 and this EPS D02, there is, now I know this because I know the product, but you would, as well. This is a change and this is an incident. So let's just pivot back over here just for a second and go into ITSM. And it kind of leads into what Will was talking about with regards to integrations as well. Now, this particular environment is a POC, so it's set up for a few different things, and I'll talk about that in a second. So I can see that just from within here, there is no Jira, but there is a Virima incident just based on the map that I saw. So if I click over there, I'd be able to see it. For the changes, the little squiggly lines that we saw, the 2 air that were crossing, that indicates that there's a change and it's in Virima. But let's say that you didn't want to see the changes in Virima. You wanted to see them in ServiceNow or in a different CMDB, let's just say, or an ITSM. Then one of these radio dials would be lit and it would correspond to that particular incident, okay? So it gives you a little insight into what exactly is happening. Now, how's this, what do I do with this once I have it? So you've baselined, because that's your goal, right? To baseline. So now that you have everything baselined and you have all the configuration item data into your CMDB, and this is your source of truth, you're going to start socializing it, right? And how do you socialize this data? So I'm going to pull out real quick to give perspective, okay? Because there's a lot going on here, and I'm going to dial it back, all right? So we don't have information overload. We're going to go back to a level of 1. So the enterprise we know is hanging out here at the left. So, socializing the data, what do I do with it? I can download the BSM. I can save it. Maybe we have an architect that needs to get this into Visio or just a PNG, or if I want to save it as an Excel. And then I can socialize this, just the level of 1. Now the level 1 is indicative of how many levels we're appreciating, right? We were just at a level of 4 before to see the actual service mappings that went all the way to the enterprise service. And we're just looking at a SQL Server, right? When we go back and we talk about what do we get and how do we appreciate it, you have to go back to the CMDB. So how do we tell the story of you? How do we get here? What's the lift? It's not a huge lift at all, and that's a value add for us. We've got the algorithms on the back end that do all of the crunching from the perspective of this being, these are social machines. We look at them as social machines. What are they doing? They're talking to each other. Applications as well are being used. So there's a lot of social interaction going on. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to scan, all right? And scanning requires some sort of either a physical box or a virtual box on-prem in your data center, and you throw some credentials at it. The credentials stay on-prem. They don't go up in the cloud. Nothing, from the perspective of security, leaves your system, right? So it's still on the ground or virtual on the ground. It's not going to leave. The probes, they're agentless. So they're the ones that are doing all the work, right? And again, we've rolled this up. We've simplified it. We said, look, Windows, Linux, network devices, those are really the 3 most popular. So why don't we throw those into a cursor and let's have just one probe handle all 3 of those. So they're extendable. We've had situations where we wanted to get more information off of an AIX server, let's just say, right? Or Cisco on a network device. We wanted to see show neighbor. So we extended the probes, and you're talking, maybe it just depends. I'm not going to throw our dev team under the bus, but it could, it could be a week and a half, to have a probe extended. But that's huge. I mean, you're talking, appreciating the product and making some changes. So this client is what is actually doing the work. If some of those on the call here, know ServiceNow, this would be like a mid server, and then the IP ranges. /24 if you're going to do a subnet for the CIDR. If you just want to go host names, you can punch them in as well. And so that is the first step, right? We scan. We've got credentials. We've, maybe you've already got your Linux, your SNMP, all of these credentials via SSH for maybe Cisco, right? If you're going to go CDP and try to leverage some of the meaningful data that comes out of there. The data comes back. It's in this what I call buffer. It's discovered. And once it's discovered, you decide what you want to do. Again, another powerful aspect is business rules. This is automation. You want the automation to do the work. So a business rule could be set up where you say, you know what, I want all Windows hosts to just go straight to the Bitbucket. I want to cast a wide net. I want to scan them, because you could say, well, why are we even scanning? Well, some subnets are picking up Windows hosts. Okay, we'll just have the business rule flush these, and everything else go to either the Virima CMDB. This POC is set up for Snow, for ServiceNow, so it could go there if you wanted it to. So its final destination is where we've been hanging out outside of the BSMs, which is the CMDB. And inside the CMDB, I want to just pause for a second and show you where the processing occurs. And these also can be based on business rules as well. And these are the patented algorithms that are taking these machines and saying, okay, you're talking to this Windows server, this Linux server is talking to this Linux server, and all these applications and components are on here. But are any of these applications talking to other servers besides itself, right? And so that's why I like to call it social discovery, right? Because how social are these machines? So all of this processing occurs and crunches everything and creates those business service mappings that we see here. So I am going to drill down just really quick into SQL Server 11. I didn't get a chance to show you. In SQL Server 11, what do you get? What's the information? Well, it's what you expect from a machine intelligence perspective. I want to be able to see, what is on this box, from the BIOS to the memory, etc. Right? It's what we expect to get back. And let me hop up to the top really quick to components. Within the component section, right? anything from hard drives to IPs to installed software. It's what we expect to get back from a WMI call that we've tightened, and we know what we want to get back. But I want to point your attention to something that is hugely valuable in my experience with customers, and that is this block right here. This could be called bananas for all we care, okay? What it highlights is that this particular POC was set up to show a transformation, migration details. You could think, you may say, well, you know what? I've got DR. I want to add properties within Verima on the fly and create, and just appreciate the schema that's already there. You don't need a developer to do this. This takes seconds to do. You take a spreadsheet, put your properties in there, and feed it in, and feed these properties in via the admin panel. Okay. And we're available. We're just an email away to go deeper into some of these things that I'm talking about. I don't have time to really go into that, but just from a high level perspective, just make a note of that. If there's some other things that you want to see, please certainly reach out to us. So one of the last things that I want to talk about is data that is not machine driven, but comes from other machines, right? And so that is the ability to be able to import data that is from an external source. So that could be, you've got another CMDB. You want to move. You don't. It doesn't have a shelf life. Whatever it's expired. Whatever the scenario is, you want to get the data out of it. I guess we could even say Archer as an application. We get a ton of application data out of Archer. Maybe it's a Department of Defense machine, right? That's a use case, and they're saying we're not having anybody scan this box. Sorry, it's a locked case, and you can't get into it. So you can import data into here. You can set up the mappings to be whatever you want them to be from the perspective of what that data is that you're importing, right? So it doesn't really matter. But the mappings already exist. So in this particular case, I already had them lined up with asset ID, device location, and blueprint. What I'm doing is I'm changing the location on a bulk level to Orlando from Miami. And so that's what you would do in that case. But you could actually just import new CIs as well. All right. So back to the BSM. So remember before I talked about we're telling the story of you, and I'm telling it really fast. What about what you don't know? Okay, so I always tell my team, it's okay to not know things as long as you can explain why you don't know them, okay, or explain what they are, all right? And so this is a good example. So let's just say that this is, the city of Orlando, and that we've scanned them. We haven't, but let's just pretend for a second, all right? And so this particular SQL Server 11, the expectation is that this machine should only be talking to dev DB01. Well, scans picked up that it's also talking to this box here. This is an infant CI record, also a ghost record. I don't know what it is. Now, the expectation is, well, let's empower the customer to do as much as they can before calling for help, right? So rescan it one more time, just double check, make sure that that particular box is definitely failing, right? And so what I just did is I'm able to rescan this entire system or systems with just a couple of clicks, and I can hit scan and it'll take me to the scan interface, but it's going to already be running once I hit scan. So what is it? Find out what it is. Scan failed again. Okay, well, it turns out it's a police department server that SQL 11's talking to. It's a burglary app. It posts, it's on a public IP. Oh, well, we didn't know that. Okay, well, you know what? It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. So now you know what you didn't know, and now you can explain it. Hugely impactful, right? And you're going to get a lot when you do scan, and if you do use our product, you're going to get a lot of these infant CIs, and security loves them because you can socialize it and say, look, there's really more connections going on than what we expected. And an NS lookup did not give us a lot because these are external, and they're not resolving. So from that perspective. All right, so I've shown you communication. I've shown you how to export the data, how to do that, how the machine is actually doing the discovery super fast. So we have different views under the different types of BSMs. And you notice that ADM is grayed out. And that is because there are no applications showing here. ADM stands for Application Dependency Mapping. So when I pivot back and I right click on here, I can see that I can go straight to another map for this SQL Server 2005. So I'm going to do that really quick. And my expectation is now the ADM view should open up and be available for me to actually see the application dependency mappings for SQL Server 2005. And let's go to a depth of 4 and see how far it goes, right? And I'll zoom in a little bit, and so we can see that there's some 2008 and 2005 SQL that are dependent on this particular actual SQL Server 2005, all right? So there are, you know, as is understandable, right? Network view is going to be grayed out, excuse me, because these aren't network devices. And then there's a few other different types of, you know, server relationship, application relationship to give you perspective on what this particular environment looks like when you go back to a server and select those. So the last piece of information, I think, how am I on time? I think I'm good, right? Got another minute here or so. Reporting, analytics. What do you do with all this data, you know, when it comes time to actually socializing the output? Somebody say something?
No, Frank, I was just going to say you've probably got another 7 minutes before we need to go to Q&A. So I think you're very good on
Okay.
time.
All right, good deal. I went a little too fast. Okay, so let's hop over to reports and then we'll go to dashboard. Within 7 minutes, we can kill it. So you've got ad hoc and canned reports. Let's hop into canned reports. Out of the box, you're going to have some canned reports that are in here. You're going to be doing your ad hoc reports, obviously in the ad hoc section. One that is a good example that a lot of customers like that will probably turn into a canned report is the end of life. And so the end of life report, actually for this one, it's set up to actually be a 2008, and let me go back into that. Actually, that one's a better. Come on, buddy. Ad hoc reports. It's my mouse. So an end of life report, right? I have all the data. I have every piece of software that is installed and running on every machine, right? We are now steady state. We've socialized that we're steady state. We've mapped every device. We have every system in here, right? From the business service mapping. If we kick back over to Vivid, okay, we have every single communication piece that it's going between these boxes. So now I'm able to mine the data and see exactly, you know, what do I want to see, right? That's the question, the who, what, when, where. So we know the what. We even know the when based on, you know, audits because of our audit information with regards to change to these machines. But let's also start drilling in. So end of life report. I just want to highlight really quick, you don't need a developer again. And that's where I'm getting at with showing this to you. Okay. So if you can form a condition in your mind, right? What do I want? What do I want the you know, the column titles to be? What exactly is the data I'm looking for? And what do I want the conditions to be? And if I know that, then I'm able to create, you know, click myself a report. So in this one, you know, we're doing an end of life report for 2003 and 2008 Windows boxes, and I want to see it in a bar chart. And so let's get this annoying thing out of the way. I can see what I've got out there, you know, and I can have it drilled down by version, you know, if I want to group by OS version, just to even really get into the minutia. Okay. So reporting, highly usable. You know, the uplift is really nothing. I mean, it's just acclimating to what it is, what the data is that you want to see, and then actually just clicking those reports. So CMDB dashboard, executive summary. You know, maybe you have terminals that you want to broadcast, you know, like a help desk, right? Where you've got Verima is going to be part of the help desk, you know, as far as a window goes, to actually highlight a dashboard. And the dashboard being, you know, again, whatever it is, the sky's the limit once you've got the data in there, right? And so maybe it's the infrastructure summary. You know, someone just wants to, you know, you're looking for changes in the infrastructure summary at a high level. GeoMap, you know, those eye candy, but it's here, and it's all clickable, so you can drill down. And this one is hugely popular. And remember, this one I said this POC set up for a transformation, a data center migration. So what's going on, right? What's in scope? How many servers? The types? They've got environment, So if you go into the environment field and you typed prod would resolve. So there would be a prod, there'd be a lab, there'd be a, whatever it is, whatever the value is that you come up with. Operating system, and then they've come up with dispositions. So I've got 141 build and swing. Well, what are they? I want to see what they are. I can click on them and pull them up and see them. So you could set that up for whatever you want. Even remember before I mentioned about disaster recovery. So it just depends on what your use case is. You're going to be able to input that data and show it from the perspective. This is spinning a little bit. This is a POC that's used heavily. So there's other users in here as well on the back end. Customer tenants are isolated, so it's a little bit faster. Outages, not interested in that. DC move again. So from your perspective, if we flip it and say DR again, we're doing a business continuity event, you would have like a business continuity, right? Software licensing, etc. Okay. All right. So like I said before, we're going to do the Q&A, but if you want to see other things too, we're just an email away.
And Franco, we have a few more minutes before we really need to go to the Q&A.
Okay.
I'd love it. So if you could go back in and pull up the BSM for WriteFax.
Okay.
Right.
It's
So folks, WriteFax is an enterprise service, okay, that is mission critical for this organization. All right. Now you're seeing here that there is an incident logged against WriteFax, right? So Franco, could you open that up, right? So what you can do right from this heads up display, folks, is you can go in and you can see the results of that incident, right? So go in there to ITSM. Yep. Right now, you're seeing here is the example of the integrated solutions that we work with. Again, if we're fortunate enough to partner with you down the road, only the solution that you are using is what would show up here. But this is just showing the samples, if you will. So you might imagine this is a demo system, right? So yeah, you can go in and you can see the results of that incident, right? You can click on it and open it up. You can see that it was a very high incident. Right, and this was actually coming through from SolarWinds, right, saying that the CPU utilization had exceeded the threshold that was set, right? So that's an example of an integration with the event monitoring, okay?
Right.
And then if we go back to the map. Right.
Hold on. It's chugging.
Yep. But in the map,
3 ROMs in there.
You can see multiple different things, and again, you can even use this for a change management perspective, right? Imagine you have a change advisory board or just an approval process of being able to go in and visualize the impacts of those changes prior to approving them. And as Franco showed you, you can rescan just the components that are on that map, right? So you're going to get near real-time results of what's going on in your environment.
Where'd you want to go in here?
I was just using that as an example.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, something to add too here, right? So SQL 11 was the entry port for the demo, which is here. And so what we're doing here is WriteFax is the entry point. Now, don't forget, I didn't say it, so you really can't forget it, but you remember, you could make a note. You can create whatever parent-child relationship you want to in here. We're not locked in. So not only can you import, right, CIs, like a lot of customers, like I manage South America a lot, and we have the South American Walmart, and they're all over the place. And so the customer wants locations as a CI, okay, but country. So Bolivia, think of every country you can think of in South America, from Argentina to Peru and everything in between. So those are, so think of WriteFax being an actual country. And then to the right of that, what is it? Is it vCenter? Okay, it's vCenter, and then boom, all the SXI hosts, and then all of the actual hosts or guests that are on those hosts. So from infrastructure to applications, whatever you want to be the ultimate parent, you can create that as well. This is a commingling, a convergence of human intelligence and machine intelligence. It's super flexible and super fast to manipulate. You don't need a doctorate or a data scientist to do it.
And
Absolutely.
Frank, if you could dig into that more, and let's go to the XD02 component, right? Yeah, in that BSM.
Oh, the
more
one that's to
detail,
the one that's to the left of
yeah, just go into more depth, right?
yeah. Yep.
Right. So,
Yep.
so now if you
Want to go
would,
inside it?
yeah, well, just open up the map for that, right? So, team,
Yep.
what you can do here is you can actually re-render this map on any component on the fly. So, like,
Yeah, right here.
just open up the map for the XD02.
Yep.
Okay. So what you're seeing here, right? And it's the services that are off to the left, right? So through your typical incident response process, right? As you were exploring what was going on with RightFacts, you could quickly ascertain that that outage or that disruption to service is because of this XD02 server or component, right? Well, are there other services that are being impacted by that? Well, yes, there are, right? So this is where you can really start getting into proactive service management. You can start letting your end user community, you can start letting the application owners know that hey, we're aware that you might be experiencing a disruption to service on the Epic service or whatever it might be, right? So folks, this is your opportunity to stop firefighting, right? Stop just responding to what the end users are telling you or that are going on. You're able we're giving you and arming you with the information that you can start seeing where there might be issues prior to the end users letting you know about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Franco. Any final thoughts that you wanted to share? Any final tidbits that when we're doing these demos, that clients typically get excited about?
Yeah, I mean, again, just going back to the reports, right? So what they get really excited, what you guys really get excited about is the server to server unauthorized reports, which shows, right, that batch that I talked about, what we don't know, right? What is out there that we don't know, and how do I get that data? And then, a lot of questions about reporting, a lot of questions about scan schedules, and a lot of questions about, parent-child relationships when we talk about setting up the human intelligence, right? The user data that's outside of the scan data. I don't know if you wanted to talk about vulnerability management. It's also another one. I don't know if you want to highlight that real quick.
Yeah, why don't you? And folks, we're heading up to the Q&A session. So if you have questions, please submit your questions right through the chat session.
Yep.
So this is some new functionality that's being released in version 6. Where we're going through the NIVID, or I'm sorry, the NIST integration that we have. We're going to be able to start showing you where there are vulnerabilities that we have detected within your environment. And again, there's going to be an icon on the map, right? It's a red shield that will show up on that map if that component happens to have a vulnerability discovered. So
right.
Sorry, I probably stole everything you were just going to say, didn't I?
Yeah. So if you notice, we have a legend down here, right? So we can see, you can map up these colors, but eventually you'll acclimate to them. I know that there's a data exchange going on between these two boxes. So I'm curious, I've got my security hat on now, and I'm looking at the BSM, and Web04 is telling me that there is a vulnerability. Okay. So there's some vulnerability information here. So the POC, remember, this hasn't been released yet, right? So this is next release. But so what will happen here is you click info. So I've got a setup just to kind of cheat a little bit and head over to the actual CI. So when we get into the CI and we go into Windows Update and available patches, I'd be able to click on available patches. It does the same thing from the business service mapping. So this would pop up. Now, obviously, no one would do this unless they've got a change request, but the ability to actually apply the patches does exist. So you'd be able to set up a business rule for automation to be able to say, okay, we've got to change control, we've got to change for this particular box. It's going to happen this date and time, and it's going to be for this, and it's a business rule that's going to run in Verima, on certain dates. And so you could do that if you wanted to. So it's a huge value add from that perspective. The other question that we get a lot is with regards to wanting to see the installed software. So I kind of flew through all this. So it's kind of cool that I can, go back into it. So with regards to installed software, so there's a primary software report or primary installed software report, you can call it what you want. And that is going to show you every single piece of software that is on this particular box. I'm going to move over to SQL 11. It says better data. But so you have to distinguish, we have to level set and think, okay, I can have complete scope creep and I can have a CMDB display, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pieces of software. Or I could say, okay, I've got the machine intelligence to know that this is what's important software for me. And I want this to be major software or a major application. And so what we're looking at here is under components. When we go to installed software, we get a sub-tab or a sub-tab category of Google, Microsoft, uncategorized. I want to jump into uncategorized because we know what to expect within those groups, right? So uncategorized would be, what's uncategorized. So we don't have it categorized and we don't know what bucket it's in, but we still see it. So we could just say that this is, Snapdrive is called Excelsior in your environment. And there's no Excelsior EXE, and it's driving everybody crazy because it's not Excelsior, it's Snapdrive. And so what you could do is, again, business rules, feeding the information. You could say, okay, well, I want this Snapdrive to be called what its alias is or what its socialized, name is within the organization, Excelsior. So there would be an application alias that you would add. And then the second thing you would do is you would promote this as major software. And then it's going to show up in it's in the CMDB. It has an asset ID, as you can see, but then it's going to actually show up in the CMDB when you look at it, from the perspective of like a pick list. You'd be able to see it because right now it's just it's associated as a component and not major software. SQL Server, any kind of database system is obviously a database, but it's still also major software as well, right? And considered an application for all intents and purposes. So from that perspective, hugely valuable and hugely important. Another one, Will, is MMC certificates. Yep. Always get asked about MMC certificates. What do we get? What can we do with it? Can we report on it? I want to know about expiring. I want to be ready. What about expired, right? So this is a perfect example of a customer saying, yeah, I want that report on my panel, on my dashboard. And I also,
Franco, just to play off of that, of expired, our time is about to expire.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So I want to turn it back over to John to kind of close us out if you would like, sir.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Franco. And one of the things I do want to say, sitting back in the peripheral and watching, what was demonstrated today. I mean, this allows you as an organization to be proactive versus reactive, which is invaluable when you're making decisions. When you're making organizational decisions, and you're looking at the who, what, when, where, why, and what is happening within my environment in a dynamic environment that's changing rapidly. This is a tool. This is really where you need to be. This is something that provides exceptional value in reporting that me personally, from a leadership perspective, these are the types of things that you need within your environment. These are the type of things that allow you to be successful. And these are the things that allow you to minimize disruptions because you're being proactive versus reactive. So I think it's critical. I think it's exceptional. I want to say thank you to Will and Franco for allowing us to take some of your time and see your the tool. If anybody who's on the webinar, if you have anything that you think of after we end this webinar, please do not hesitate to reach out to Flycast, and we can get those questions answered for you. And just remember, one of the things I said earlier is that we're Flycast. This is the vertical we run in. We're ITSM shop. We partner with companies like Virima because they're enhancers. They're things that allow us to increase the value of our toolbox, and it just makes sense. So if you need anything or you want to talk about anything that was discussed today, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, we're at flycastpartners.com, and we appreciate you attending. So in that, we're at the time 2:45. Everybody stay safe and stay out of trouble. And again, thank you very much for attending.
Thank you all.
Take care.